Patsy eventually. Well, of course, he's the namesake for my sister Patty.
Yes.
That's who Patty's named after.
Yes.
But anyway, he came down with TB, right? Tell us about that.
Yes, he did.
But you used to visit him even though he had TB. A lot of people wouldn't do that.
Well, I visited him and kissed him. I didn't mind kissing him. He said, don't, Ann, don't kiss me. I said, I don't care, I'm kissing you. Well, I never did get to kiss him. And then he said, I want to go to Arizona. I think that I'll feel better. He says, Ann, would you take me to Arizona? Would you go with me? My husband, at that time was my boyfriend. He took me up to the airport with my mother and sisters.
Your boyfriend at the time is Dad, obviously.
Yes.
Whose picture is right there next to you.
There's nothing he wouldn't do for me. He wanted to marry me in the worst way, and I did not want to marry him. I don't know what was wrong with me. I liked a guy that had blonde hair way down to his eyebrows, and my niece Pauline called him Little Abner, but not to his face. But she'd say, oh, I don't know why you like Little Abner when Art is so nice.
Now, that was his chair. That was his favorite chair here before he died, right?
Yes. And the baby is, I'm rocking the baby in this chair. Well, I bought this chair for him. While he was in the service, I worked with his sister, and she bugged me night and day.
His sister Betty. His sister Betty,
and she'd say.
That was at the garment factory?
Yes, at the garment factory.
In Vineland.
In Vineland, New Jersey.
Which is where Patty and I were born.
Well, before she worked with me, she worked in a restaurant as a waitress, and I always admired her. She had a soft, sweet voice, and really she made a lot of tips because she was such a sweet girl. So she later quit that job and came to work where I was working. And I was so happy to see her. I says, oh, I'm so glad you're working here. And we became pals. She and I were inseparable. But she would always say, please write to my brother. He's in the service. And I says, I don't know your brother. She said, oh, well, please write to him. I says, no, I write to a lot of fellows. Because where I went to church, I wrote to all the fellas that I used to go to church with, you know. And I didn't want to write to somebody that I did not know. She said, well, you know me. I says, well, I know you. I says, but I don't know your brother, so please, I'm not going to write him. Leave me alone. I have a lot of letters to write to all these other fellas. So when the service was over, when the war was over, and Arthur Smart came home, somehow, you know what she did? Well, we would walk uptown together and we'd shop or something. And she had her brother, unbeknownst to me, sit in his car, and then she walked over and she said, this is my brother.
And what is his name?
His name was Arthur Smart.
Arthur Smart. And the little boy you're holding right now is named after him. He's also Arthur Smart.
Well, anyway, because I liked this guy named Benny, I had no use for any other guy. But anyway, he asked me for a date. And I says, no. So then he pursued it. He came to my house. He met my mother and father. And my niece Pauline was there. And when I saw his car, I ran up the steps and I said, Pauline, I said, this guy's going to ask me to go out and I'm not going out with him. I said, so get rid of him. And she was so surprised. And I went upstairs and I stayed up there. So finally, she come running upstairs after she had a conversation with him, and she thought, what a fine man. He is so nice, and he is so smart, and he seems to know a lot, and I know she would like him. So she came up and she says, Annie, you are going to come down here and talk to that man. He is so intelligent. He's so sweet. And I says, Pauline, I'm not interested in him. You're coming down. I says, okay, then I'll come down the way I look. I had my hair up because I had just taken a bath. I had it all the way up like this, straggly down, and I come down there. And I said, yes, what is it? And he said, would you like to go to the movies with me tonight? And I says, no. And Pauline is behind me, and she goes, and I said, well, where are we going to go? And he says, and he named the movie. I don't remember it, but he remembered it because he'd always tell me about it. And I can't remember the movie.
Was this July 13th of 1949?
Yes, this was July 13th. That was my first date with him. And
4 years before I was born.
And so, yeah, and so, so I went to the movies with him. And you won't believe what happened to me. I had to use the bathroom. And my pants, you know, the rubber broke, and I didn't have a pin, I didn't have anything to pin up my pants, so I took them off and threw them in the trash can, and there I am, on a date with a stranger.
No panties.
No panties.
Were you in a dress?
Huh?
Were you wearing a dress?
I was wearing a dress, but he didn't know that I didn't have panties on, that I didn't have panties. And the only kiss I got was when he dropped me off and gave me a kiss. And I gave him my cheek.
You offered your cheek.
I offered my cheek, so he kissed my cheek. And then I went in and I said, thank you for the date. But I wasn't going to go out with him, except for my niece. She was furious. Because, you know, she was married and pregnant with her first child.
Uh-huh.
And she wanted me to be married, you know? She really did.
Yeah, but you guys hit it off on your second date, maybe, or what?
No, it took a while. I really didn't care for him.
He just kept pursuing you?
Yeah, he kept pursuing me. And one time, when he came to the house, I said to him, Art, please don't come tonight. I said, I want space. You're always coming. So he said, okay. Well, the next thing I knew, that evening, he's knocking at the door. And I says, Art, didn't I tell you not to come? He says, oh, Ian, I came to see your mother and father. So I said, okay. They're in the living room. Go in there. And I went upstairs, and I stayed upstairs, and my mother and father were furious with me because I wouldn't come down. And I said, well, I told him not to come. And he said he came to see you, so you have him.
So, Dad kept pursuing you, though.
Yeah, he would not,
he just
fell in love with me.
He just wouldn't take no for an answer, huh?
No, I'll tell you the truth. And it wasn't
So when did you finally start liking him?
I don't know. We dated for 2 years before I ever considered marrying him. He wanted to get married right away, but I didn't. I said, no, I don't want to get married yet. No. So I finally married him at the age of 27. I could have married him when...
Why'd you marry him? Why'd you marry him? Did you love him or not?
Sure. I fell in love with him. Otherwise, I wouldn't have married him.
Yeah, but
he was so kind and loving. I really did love Dad. Because he turned out to be so wonderful, and he was so good to my mother and father. That was a big plus